Now, since a lot of people did want a AA test, I will perform one with the Kii. Very simple captain build, BFT, AFT and manual AA. It's only a 14-point captain, so you could of course, if this was a normal build, you could still add things like Adrenaline Rush and Superintendent and make this a viable captain in general. Although the lack of fire prevention or concealment is kind of sketchy, but then again, if you're playing with a carrier, if you're queuing up with a 2-manning with a carrier or 3-manning with a carrier, this kind of full AA build could be quite solid. The module wise, I only have the AA range, nothing else, and this is something I would use regardless, because the AA is kind of a key component of the Kii. Let's check if I got the flags equipped. I do have the flag, and that puts our AA defense at 100 with 220 DPS on long range, 232 mid-range and 137 short range. With manual AA doubling the long range though, we'll have to see how this actually performs in the game. Alright, so jumping right into a training room battle, and I have queued myself up against 3 Taihos bots. Now why Taihos first of all? Because carrier bots tend to use stock planes, which means of course the tier 9 stock planes are actually the tier 8 upgraded planes, so the equivalent of facing a Shokaku. Also, of course, human players tend to group up their planes, and if they have some sort of competence, they tend to also manual drop. So in order to make up for the lack of grouping of planes and in general as competent at approaching and dropping, I tripled their number into 3 to make the comparison seem a bit more valid and to give you an idea of how the Kii performs against multiple planes with this setup. Our AA values are of course very nice, and we'll have to see how it performs with manual AA. Let's launch our fighter plane or spotter plane depending on your setup. Usually I prefer spotter, but since we are going with an AA build, I guess fighter plane is the way to go. First bomber squad. Doubt he can even get within range. No, he cannot. I do make sure to focus fire every squad, of course, because manual AA is a key component considering your long range guns benefit greatly. So bombers at least have absolutely no chance of even closing the distance with you. Fighters, even fighters caught within the 7.2 km aura, start to get picked off quite quickly. Oh, torpedo planes, of course, the priority here. They want to kill my fighter plane, but I have to deal with the torpedo bombers now. That's my absolute priority. Oh, actually glided a bit too far. That's, I think, not the end of the world. As long as I take every torp I take, as long as I take them on the nose, I should be just fine. Wonder actually how is my AA doing after all these strikes? I lost, honestly, not much really. I lost only a small amount of mid-range AA, but other than that, not really too bad. And honestly, I feel like I could have avoided that first torp if I hadn't been so lazy with slowing down. And I have already shot down 30 planes, so certainly not unimpressive by any means. The next squad coming in, my damage control will be on cooldown now though. But these things, honestly, single squads are probably zero threat to the Kii. Single squads, because these are tier 8, tier 9 planes, mostly tier 8s, the same tier planes, and honestly they are no threat. They can't even close the distance. They have absolutely no chance. Let's see if I can actually turn away and start kiting here. See how well it performs when you kite away from the planes. My concealment is of course pretty atrocious, 15.6 since it's full AA build. But if there's carriers in the game, usually they are spotting you all the time and you're also spotting them. So the benefits of concealment can be debated if you're queuing with a carrier. Anyway, I'll have my fighter plane up soon again. Oh, and here comes the next squad. Here comes the next squad. Pop that fighter plane. Man, these planes are being shredded though. Need to catch this squad before he gets my flank. Man, this AA is no joke. This AA build, I would say, if you queue up with a carrier, this is very much like queuing up with an NC, full AA build NC. It's very little mercy to any sort of planes. Rudder shift does leave some things to be desired, and of course you don't have the Amagi's amazing torpedo protection either. But I mean, it's not much damage we're eating, is it? No, let's focus on the priorities here again. The biggest thing here is the bombers don't really get through at all, and because the bombers don't get through at all, they're not really crippling my AA at all. Of course, what would significantly cripple your performance would be any sort of presence of a Royal Navy battleship, since those massive HE volleys absolutely slaughter anti-air. But I think that this big AA mounts that really benefit from the manual AA and basically your bread and butter long-range anti-air, I think they are fairly sturdy. So the question remains, just how much AA would you actually lose? Well, I should be focusing the ones that are about to drop me. I did lose some AA. Let's see, how's our AA doing now? 250. So honestly, carriers are going to struggle to do anything about your AA. It's going to have to be incoming fire from other sources that are going to have to cripple your AA. And note that I'm running the module that increases the survivability of my turrets, which is something you normally run. But if we're going full AA build, and for the sake of this test, I could also have spec'd the module that increases my secondary and AA survival by 100%. And in that case, I would have lost even less anti-air by now. So, as an AA fortress, the Kii is very scary. I mean, I don't think there's really any other way of looking at this. Even at same tier, probably even higher tier planes. I mean, these are actually tier 9 planes, so these are upgraded planes. These aren't tier 8 planes, these are tier 9s. So, the Kii is terrifying. A full AA build Kii, I don't see any carrier wanting to drop this thing, because it's not fun. You throw away all your planes, and the actual damage you cause is very little. I'm also trying to eat all the torps on my nose, because my nose is saturated. Oh, no need there anymore. Gotta make sure I always focus them, of course, because so much of this DPS comes from doubling this 220 to 440 with the help of manual AA, and that's what pretty much shreds these planes so extremely quickly. I'm gonna have to eat the torp, I think. I want to dodge this one, which means I'll eat these guys. But I'm actually pretty fast. We'll see if I can mitigate the impact here. We're gonna eat one. But we ate it on the belt, so we of course get the increased torpedo protection that comes with that. And another drop. And this is the first time we lost the long range. We lost one long range AA mount. First time after all those bombs. And in the meanwhile, we're pretty much close the distance with these carriers. And in fact, looking at the torpedo planes that are coming our way, it looks like we are starting to deplane. We're starting to deplane the torpedo bombers. In which case, I'm not too afraid of using my... Oh, never mind, spoke too soon. Damn it. It was just that carrier. I might have gotten myself killed by blowing my damage repair now, because... Yeah, okay. We were a bit too early on that deplaning comment. You know, knowing my RNG, this torpedo here is going to cause a flooding and I'm going to die. Because that's how my RNG works. Oh, nope, we got lucky. But I don't think that luck can last forever. Nope, oh boy. Oh boy, yeah, we are pretty screwed. Yeah, here we go. We are most certainly dead. But then again, the only reason we actually died was because we charged in close enough for these carriers to actually be able to launch planes pretty much point blank and mess us up. At actual, if you just had stayed far away, I think we could have easily deplaned them all without any real issues. So 118 planes shot down, and honestly, I found this very impressive. Very impressive. I lost almost 14 bombs, and I only really lost any sort of significant AA towards the very end. And the torpedo planes, well, they were just absolutely shattered. And this was tier 8 and tier 9 torpedo planes, and this was of course 3 times more than you would normally face. Granted, an actual competent player would of course group them up and come in together to mitigate the losses, but I would still say that A full AA spec Kii is not something any carrier really wants to touch in this game. I don't even care if it's tier 10. The amount of DPS that comes out of this thing when you spec both BFT, AFT, manual AA is extremely terrifying. So this really is the IGN version of the NC with the full AA build. It's something you don't really want to get anywhere close to at all. In fact, I probably could have mitigated the losses of those planes if I would have just switched this one main armaments mod for auxiliary. This of course increases your AA mount survivability by 100%, so this of course would have been a really big deal in helping here. But for normal games I tend to use this one, but honestly for an AA build, switching to this wouldn't even be that bad of an idea. So AA wise, the Kii is certainly an absolute monster, which is not really surprising considering the stats, and of course these big guns benefiting from manual AA. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this, since this was requested a fair amount. People wanted to see how this thing performs as an anti-air ship, and it's certainly no joke.